Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Art of Creation show, where we look at how choice creates and different possibilities for creating a life and a living that actually work. So my name is Rebecca Boswell. I am your host, and today I have the pleasure of introducing to you our special guest, Siris Rivas, and she is with us today to talk on the topic of choosing you, choosing your life. She just released a book in which she was a contributor to, and her chapter is actually choosing me and changing my life. So she has personal experience on this topic. She is a speech pathologist. She is working with families, children and individuals, empowering them to really find communication that works and different ways of showing up in the world. And we get to talk to her about that more today. Siris, it's wonderful to have you on the show. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun. I'm very excited.
Me too. And there are so many amazing things. So you have a business of your own, Empowering Light Language LLC. And to me, it's fascinating the way that you are incorporating energetic modalities together with these somewhat science-based disciplines of the pediatric speech and language pathology. You're a feeding therapist, a learning behavioral specialist, and I'm just wondering, can you share with us a little bit about your journey and how you came to merge these all together and show up today as you are?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't always the case. Like when I first started more consciously playing with energetic modalities, this was right when I was also graduating from all of these graduate programs that were training me in these science-based, evidence-based. You have to see it first. You have to find the facts, very cognitive approaches in speech-language pathology and learning disabilities. And so it was this parallel universe for a long, long time. And then I left graduate school. I received a dual master's in speech language pathology and learning disabilities. And I entered the school system, which I always wanted to be, working in the schools. I loved working in the schools. Both my parents were educators, are educators. But I knew I also didn't want to be in the classroom in the way that they were. They were full-time classroom teachers, and I wanted to support educational system, but kind of go in and out and like be able to flow and have a lot more options and things like that. And so I go into the school system, and I was so, actually even before that, for a decade before that, I was already sick, like chronically. In grad school, as much as it was really intense, I thrived during that time, and I actually had almost like a lull in this chronic sickness and chronic pain that I was experiencing. And then I go into the school system, and it ramps back up again to the point that I had to make a demand from myself to have something change. I was taking 24/7 all year round. I was taking inhalers, allergy medication, nose sprays, and it still wasn't really helping. From November through March, I was chronically sick and chronically in pain. And the doctors were saying, if you don't change something, you're going to get pneumonia and you're going to die. Because I was getting chronic sinus infections, chronic bronchitis. It was just escalating worse and worse. And all the different treatments that they tried to give me didn't really work. So I had to go to something else. I was like, none of this is working. The doctors don't have any ideas of what to do with my body. And fortunately, my mom found a naturopathic doctor that was a great fit. And she also happened to be a Reiki master. So I started playing around with Reiki, and I was able to alleviate and remove all this pain that I had in my body, because I was so hunched over. I was like, I had the body that we think of an old crone in their like 90s in my 20s. And like you wouldn't really be able to recognize me. And so for the beginning of my career, I was in the schools. I was like, okay, this is my professional world. This is the professional like Siris over here, and I'm going to do the speech and the language. And I started adding the feeding. And then this is my energetic world. This is like me playing around with shamans and energy and bodies and like having meetings in my house and like in different venues around the city and playing around with that and like this woo 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 stuff, but I kept it totally separate.
Mm-hmm.
And then more and more, I moved out of the schools, and that's a whole other story we can get into in another time. But I left working in the schools, and I still wanted to impact education. I still wanted to work with families and children. So I was like, let's go to the source. And where did all this stuff start? I was like, let me work directly with the parents. Let me go in the homes. So I started working in early intervention. And so I was going house to house and daycare to daycare, working with the early intervention population for birth to 3 years old. That was like the more of a focus. So I was like, maybe what I can choose, me choosing this might actually impact the school system. So these children wouldn't necessarily need as much services or any services at all by the time they entered into the schools. Like, what if we could actually like affect a lot more change earlier on?
Yeah,
I
nip
love
it in
early
the bud.
intervention. I still do. It's amazing. And so these parents, I'm talking to them directly, and these teachers at this age were like, they were seeing change. Tool. And then some of them, and I'm so grateful for them, some of them were like, well, we're noticing some changes, but could we try out something else? And I was like, well, I have this quirky, weird stuff that I also do on the side. And, following the awareness, I was like, okay, are they willing to hear this? Are they willing to receive this? And for those that I got a yes with, I was like, okay, hey, let's try some of these tools. And they tried it, and they saw the difference. They saw that it worked. Mm-hmm. And I realized in every other area of my life, like when I would have social events and gatherings, I had everybody all mixed together. I didn't separate it. At my birthday party, I had work friends, and I had colleagues, and I had family, and I had friends from high school, college. It's just all mixed together. And so I was like, what am I doing here? Like, what point of view is this that I need to keep this energetic stuff away from the professional and this? And so I was like, when I was incorporating for my business and I chose to create empowering light language, I was like, let's put it all together. People are already asking for this. This is who I really am. If I was really choosing for me and what would really be honoring for me, what would I choose for my business? And that was to have it all together. So
yeah, I love it.
And being all together.
And we're talking about communication and language, right? And even just the word incorporating. And I just love as you're talking about this, and it's like, how can I bring these pieces of me together and, this and bring it all together? And so I incorporated. It's like, yes, that's exactly it. Melding these pieces that actually aren't even separate. That
they really aren't.
Yeah, cool. So you incorporated all of these pieces together, and was that choosing you changing your life?
It totally has been, and it keeps evolving. Like, it keeps shifting. I keep adding more things because that's how I've always been in my entire life. I'm just kind of been this like, what else can I learn? What else can I add to my life? And that's my business as well. You're probably familiar with Simone Millis's book, Joy of Business. And she says, as soon as you're out of bed, as soon as you're awake, you're in business. And so I wasn't separating any areas of my life from my business. It's all mixed together, and it's so much more fun for me. And it's just taken my life in so many different awesome directions that I wouldn't have expected it to. It's been really great.
Cool. So now you have not only incorporated these aspects of your life into your business, you've actually incorporated your business into your life. Mm-hmm. So it's been a complete holistic incorporation all around.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about this book. You just launched this book together with some other co-contributors, including Tara McCullum, who was actually a guest of ours a few episodes ago. And so can you tell us a little bit about how you chose the chapter that you chose, and and what would you like us to know about it?
That I didn't choose the chapter, that it kind of chose me. Talking about choice there. It's funny. So I was traveling around the world, and that's part of what I wrote about in my chapter. I was traveling around the world, following my awareness, just had one-way tickets everywhere I went. I just kept going. Had a one-way ticket to Australia, and then from there I went to New Zealand, and then I went to Thailand, and I wasn't really sure where I was going to go next, but I was going to just roll with it, and I wasn't going to try to control it at all. And that was a really big part of it for me. My targets was to really let go of control and be totally out of definition, and really see who Siris was when she didn't have all these other external things that were being projected at her in the same way. I mean, anywhere you go, people are projecting their points of views on you, but not having my family's points of views. Like if I wasn't so-and-so's daughter and so-and-so's sister and the owner of this business. And then after multiple places and I get back to the United States and I'm still traveling around, I'm in New Orleans. I find myself in New Orleans, which is a beautiful city. If you haven't been there, I highly recommend it. I'm already thinking, when will be the next time I get to go there? It's so great. Like I dream about the food there and the music. It's awesome. And it was a great place to write. And so I was just writing. I was just, writing and having fun. And I had it. And Tara had told me that she was working on a book. I didn't really get to know much of the details at this point, but I was like, you know what? That's a great idea. And this is a great space. I had a wonderful a guest house that I was in that had this beautiful sprawling porch and the sun and everything. So I was like, let me just start writing and see what happens. I did not stop writing for like 6 hours straight. Wow. Like I think I got up to like eat a snack at one point and stretch, and then I just kept writing and it just poured out. And that was the chapter. And then the next morning, our editor, Erica Glessing, was like, hey, so Tara thought that you might be a good fit for our book and we're still looking for other contributors. Would you like to contribute? And then I was like, well, what's the title of the book? And she said, The Lightness of Choosing You. And I was like, this is crazy, Erica. I just wrote this thing and I was considering titling it Choosing Me Changed My Life. And so it totally works with what you just said. And oh wow, what
else do you know?
Boom. So and with very few edits, that was it. That was my chapter. It was done already. Before I was even choosing to be a part of the book was already calling at me and be like, right, woman, right. And so it just showed up. It was awesome.
Oh, so cool. And that's one of those things too where how much of that book did you actually choose as soon as you heard about it, right? Well, when we actually start to be aware of energies and follow energies, I totally get that there was that moment when Tara was telling you about what she was doing and you were like, oh yeah, that. And it's almost like you're like, oh yeah, that.
I'm not sure what it'll
Here you
like.
go.
Have something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you look at it backwards and it's like, oh, I actually knew that, even when at the time it's not something that we had planned or programmed in. And yet how aware were you to actually get the download and to allow it to come through? That's so cool.
Totally. Thank you for the acknowledgement. Yes, I completely agree. And that's been the case with a lot of stuff that I talked about in the chapter. It was really about acknowledging how, holy cow, I've been so aware about so many different things. And instead of going into judging myself about not choosing any one thing at any one moment, just being like, wow, I had this awareness. I chose whatever I chose. And now what would I like to choose?
Yeah.
And what would it create in our lives if we didn't actually judge ourselves from our past choices or from any choice? And we were just like, okay, that was a choice. And now what awareness do I have and what would I like to choose? And then the other big part was I had this really interesting point of view for a long time, which stopped me from choosing what was going to really work for me and the choices that would create the life that I would truly like, because I thought if I chose what would work for me, it was going to be against other people. It was going to work against other people. And that was a totally erroneous point of view for me. I realized that when I actually chose what was light for me, chose what was true for me and what would actually be sustainable and work, it was this lovely invitation for other people in my life to completely expand their worlds and to choose what was working for them and not worry about a loss, not worry that people are going to leave because you're going to choose for you. Like if it shows up, a lot of times it doesn't. People surprise you. I've been so surprised in the last year, given how much I'm choosing for myself more and more and including others in that choice. Mm-hmm. It's not this separation of like me or them, but when I'm choosing me and including all these other people in that choice, like what's actually going to work better for me and everyone involved here. Holy guacamole. Like all these people in my life are traveling more, are leaving abusive relationships, are going back to school when they've been wanting to go back to school for like 10, 15 years, all these different things. And I'm going to give myself a little credit for it, a little bit. And they've also beautifully acknowledged it of my contribution to them, and I acknowledge their contribution to me. But it's like, it's been like really, it didn't ruin everything. Like it wasn't the end of the world, which is what so many people have been telling me. It's like, yeah, well, if I do that, will I lose this and this? Will this happen? This horrible, like they're expecting the horrible things, and not like, well, what about all the wonderful things that can happen when you choose for you? Including the wonderful things that can show up, not just for you, but for other people, like, and for the world. Whew. It's so cool to see that show up and keep showing up.
Yeah, and I totally get that. And you know, when you were saying that you had this point of view, right, that you couldn't choose for you because of what it would create, maybe it would blow things up or it would hurt other people or whatever. And I just really get, you know, how many people are watching this or going to watch this in the future that have that sense and maybe never even had words for it, but just
I didn't.
I
didn't until it showed up. You know, you don't get it until you get it. Like I didn't have the words for it.
So when you sense into where you were in that space before really committing and choosing for you, and there was that sense of like, you know, I don't know if I can, or what's going to show up, and is there going to be impending doom? Yeah. Like when you sense into what that was, right? And we get that there are people who may kind of have that sense now. Mm-hmm. You know, knowing what you know now, what would you offer people today to begin bridging that gap, to take that next step or that leap, or to begin to trust that they know for them, or, you know, that they could choose more of themselves?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the questions there's two that come to mind. The first one that came to mind I'm not even sure when it showed up, but this question that came to my world that was really helped shift things. One was, if this is exactly how your life was going to be like for the rest of your life, is that enough for you? Is that going to be enough for you?
Yeah.
Because if you don't make a different choice soon, it's just going to keep more and more of this. And do you want more and more of this, or would you like something totally different?
Yeah.
And when I was picturing my life and sitting with the energy of if I just really stayed exactly where I was, and I had my condo and I had this wonderful partner, but it was really not working, and I was going to be in Chicago, in a city that I really didn't want to live in anymore, even though I'd been such a contribution in my life for so many years, and all this stuff going on with my family. It's like, okay, this is okay life. Like, from all intents and purposes, this is all right. This is okay life. I could do this is this going to be enough for you? Is this going to really work for 50 more years, for even 20 more years? When I was getting to like even thinking about it in the 5-year mark, I was like, I can't do it. And then the other question that was a huge help, that I believe either Gary Douglas or Dr. Dane here mentioned in some book or class that I've taken with them. They're the founders of Access Consciousness. They said, well, if you knew you couldn't lose, what would you choose? Mm-hmm. So I was so focused on the loss. If I did this, I was going to lose this. If I did this, I was risking this. And it was all losing everything else but me. Mm-hmm. I was already losing me living the life that I was in. I was already getting it. It was chipping away. And I was valuing this life I had constructed more than having all of me, you know? And so I was like, if I were really choosing all of me and everything that I would really like to have, is this what I would be choosing? Is this whatever moment in this, you know, when I was asking that, and I'd ask myself repeatedly, like different things. Okay, right now, is this consistent with the life I'd really like to have? Is this going to create the life I'd really like to have? So from present and future, right? Or where the present is creating our choices now are creating our future. And it was a big no on so many levels before I chose to do everything that I wrote about in this chapter, which is travel the world and take my business global and really, you know, see what I would really like to have when I wasn't living in Chicago. And now I'm moving out of the country, and all these other people have shown up in my life, and the partner that I was with, we're still good friends and talk like on a regular basis, and we still have each other's back. And it's not like, oh, we'll be friends and then we never see each other again. Like, we're each other's cheerleaders still, and yet we have totally different lives that are totally work better for us now than when we were together.
Wow.
And that's just one example of the many things that have shown up, given my one choice after another choice after another choice that I did over the course of 6 months to a year. And it continues. That keeps reverberating out and shifting the lives of all the people around me. And it's just in my life too. I mean, it's all together. It's all connected.
So where are you moving to next?
I'm in Savannah, Georgia right now. And this will be one of my homes. This will be my home in the United States. And in these 10 seconds, at least, I'm in the process of having my visa, going through the visa process for Australia. I'm having that, getting registered and everything, getting all the paperwork done. All the stuff that in my part right now has already been sent, and I'm waiting to hear back through the chain of commands in the immigration department and things like that. And it was funny because over the course of, before choosing to travel the world, I asked my body, where would you like to go? And that was also the advice of Gary Douglas. He was like, where would your body like to go? And I got Australia or Thailand.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up going to Thailand later on. But I was like, let me start my journey without having to process another language. Let me do this big epic, you know, like, not to make it significant, but I was like, I know I'm going to be traveling for a couple months. Let's like kind of do like a slow, like ease into it. And, and Australia was epic, and it just set the bar for everywhere else I went. And I spent a month there traveling along the East Coast and meeting all these amazing people and making all these connections. And then I kept going from there, and everywhere I went, I kept being like, but I would like to be in Brisbane right now. Like, why am I not in Brisbane in Australia right now? And it's shifted, so it's not quite so like impatient to be back there and to be there again. Not to be back there, but to be there again. But it's definitely still, I keep asking, because, you know, I'm living in the question and being in the question about, is that still where my body would like to be, and where it would completely create the life I truly like faster than I could ever imagine. Melanie Clampett, who's a wonderful certified access consciousness facilitator, she posted about that question right around the time when I was torpedoing at the end of a lot of my global travel. And she said she asked, where could I move that would create the life I truly desire faster than I can ever imagine? And she kept asking for months and months and months, because we ask for awareness. You don't ask for an answer, right? At least I do.
Yeah.
And so I kept asking and I kept asking, and I had to clear a lot of blocks for me to get my awareness around that. I was at first thinking it was going to be San Francisco, the Bay Area in California, and all these different things. And I was really playing it safe. That was going to be safe for me. That was going to be comfortable for me, but it wasn't actually matching. I was saying it, and it wasn't actually like lighting me up.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I realized with when you're really choosing you, it lights you up. You're like, whoo, you're like totally like more animated, happier. It's like, it lights you up and lightens up your world. Both.
Yeah. Yeah. How much do we try to choose things based on what we think the right or appropriate choice would be, or the choice that people could accept more, or, you know, that would look right or make sense. Yeah. And you're saying
way more palatable to my friends and family for me to move to California. Even as I was saying it, I was telling them and I was like, like it was almost, it was like a little like morsel for them. Like I was feeding it to them, but it wasn't to feed my soul and to light me up.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool too, though, with things like that, where we can actually sort of make, like in that moment, you sort of made that choice, okay, the Bay Area, and you got to sort of play with it and be in it and talk to people about it. And then also get that awareness that you're talking about of like, oh, interesting. Okay, so I'm choosing it right now. I haven't bought any plane tickets. I haven't signed a lease, and yet I'm choosing it. And it's kind of falling like a lead weight. It's not, you know, all giggles and sprinkles and butterflies, you know.
There was no movement toward actually having that show up. My mom used the same question, and that's how we're in Savannah, Georgia. And she was willing to receive that awareness right away. She didn't even know where Savannah was. She asked the question that Melanie brought up that I mentioned, and she got, the Georgia, Alabama area. And she was like, well, what's there? I've never even been to, I've driven through there on the way to Florida. What's there? And so she started looking places up, and Savannah pinged, and she just knew that was where she was going to live and buy a house next. And we visited here, and within 3 days, we put a bid on this house.
Wow.
The bid, and we moved, and then 2 months later, we're moving in here.
Wow.
So fast, if you're willing, right?
Yeah.
Are we willing to have that awareness with ease right away? Or are we going to keep stopping ourselves from having the life that we would truly like?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm so grateful for my mom for her to be that invitation to me to really choose quickly and not have this distraction of like doubt and worrying about other people's points of view. She was just like, she was in it. And I was like, all right, Ma, you're choosing it. Great. I'll have your back. I'll go with you. I'll help you pack up. I'll move here and help you set up. I'll set up my closet in the United States here. So I have a stateside home. Cool. Thank you for that. And it's been amazing. I absolutely no regrets moving there and moving at this speed. And I'm if anything, I'm just like, what else? What else could I do?
Yeah. Wow. If that can occur, what else is possible that I never even considered? And, you know, it's really cool. You're acknowledging your mom for the invitation that she is and has been for you. Also acknowledging then where you're choosing and where that now opens up a different space and opens up different possibilities of what people in your circle can choose when they see, hey, oh my gosh, Siris is choosing this. Like, can you even believe it? Like, whoa, blowing the roof off, blowing my mind. You know, if she can do it and like she's still happy and alive, you know, like we think
constantly.
Yeah. Right. And it's like, oh, what could I choose? Maybe even just this little piece, right? And even sometimes what seems like a little choice, sometimes that 1 degree shift can just, become something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit more about this global business now. You were working sort of in more localized areas with your training and your background, and now you've expanded globally to be this invitation around the world. And so where can people catch you, and what are the kinds of things that you're bringing into the world now to this global population?
Gosh, well, I'm still a practicing speech-language pathologist, and I'm working as consultants and practicing in the schools in the Savannah, Chatham County.
Yeah.
I'm also consulting in Chicagoland area remotely, supervising other clinicians, a lot of them who are doing early intervention. I'll be adding in some early intervention clinic work here. And then on top of that, I'm actually facilitating a lot of online events and webinars, some of which are more focused on access consciousness tools and energetic tools, and some of which you meld this, like the pediatric development, how do you like support your children while also honoring yourself as a parent or as a professional, as a teacher in these online events. So some of which are kind of follow the energy of that and say, okay, what are people been asking for related to what I can provide in my gifts and capacities, and what would be fun, you know? And I have my website, empoweringlightlanguage.com. My events are up there, my classes, my services. I provide private sessions online and by phone. So that's been really fun because that can take me everywhere. And then I've been facilitating classes around the world. So far, I've been in all over the United States and in Puerto Rico, where I was born. And so I facilitate classes in Spanish as well. I would like to do that more. And then in New Zealand, with the hopes of actually being able to facilitate classes in Australia, which will hopefully be my new home if that's still light by the time I have to pay for the visa.
Yeah, cool. Now, so for anyone who may come to this who is working in a professional capacity in ways that overlap with how you're working with children and families and with speech pathology, what are some things that you could suggest that they start to play with, even if they've never worked with energetic tools or even considered blending some of this kind of work with what they learned in school?
Oh, there's so many things. One of the first ones I would recommend is this phenomenal book that I actually did a book club on recently called Would You Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree?
Yeah.
It's a wonderful, wonderful book written by Ann Maxwell, who's a social worker, Gary M. Douglas, and Dr. Dane Here, the co-founders of Access Consciousness. And it's basically a transcript of these series of conversations that they had around these children with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism. And those are all specialties of mine that I played around with. I preferred working with those populations as a speech-language pathologist for years before I even found out about Access Consciousness. And then my mom or somebody mentioned this book, and I tore through it, and I've just been loving it ever since. I've reread it. It's dog-eared. And it was amazing for people some of which had never played around with energy work at all, but who are educators and parents and from various backgrounds around the world. They joined this book club and they saw so many shifts in their world as to not only how they were interacting with children that had these diagnoses, but even for themselves. They noticed, wow, I have so many similarities to these kids. And if I were to acknowledge that and not judge it, oh my gosh. Like, what else would change? And so many things shifted. There's a lot of really practical, simple tools in the book that are just phenomenal. Talk about how a small choice can have this amazing rippling out effect. So that I highly recommend that book. And then I'm currently co-hosting a book club on the book Living Beyond Distraction, which is another phenomenal book. There's a little bit of an overlap there with the word distraction, right? With ADD and ADHD, because that means attention deficit disorder and attention deficit disorder with hyperactivity. And so that most of the people that are in our original book club on Would You Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree have continued onward to this book, and then it's totally exponentialized and blown up completely in this really amazing way. We've had 12 certified Access Consciousness facilitators as our guests joining in and facilitating each of these amazing 6 dynamic chapters on distractor implants, which are basically all these different points of views that we might have been distracted by or implanted, there's 24 of them. Some examples are anger, rage, fury, and hate, guilt, blame, shame, and regret. And so we've had these facilitators coming in. And so books are really great, maybe just because I'm an educator. But I love, this is a really tangible, very affordable way to start playing around with some of these simple tools. And then if you'd so like, there's tons of Access Bars facilitators around the world and Access Body Process facilitators such as myself. And so you can get really into even more of these tools in these classes that are in 175 countries now, I believe, right, Rebecca?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. And it's really, for me, it's this thing of like just having this invitation. We've been talking about the invitation a lot. And, it's this thing of like, there's nothing for you to believe. Mm-hmm. And yet there's always an invitation to look at, okay, so what what do you know? And what do you actually have within you? What is part of your being? What is your being that is a capacity, that is the gift? And how many times do we flip those capacities and those gifts into wrongness and actually shut down all the places that we could really contribute in the world and really share something that that otherwise maybe isn't completely available, because there's this piece that that we actually can be the invitation to that no one else can. So yeah, being able to just find, okay, these questions and all the different possibilities that they open up to, and then doing and being all of that with no judgment, where it doesn't have to look a certain way. You don't have to get anything right. It's just really an exploration and about creating more space and being that space of who we be on the planet. So yeah, excellent book choices. I will actually put a link to those in the show notes. I will also have a link to your website, Siris, so that people can find you and find all the things that you're up to and all these amazing classes that you are creating and contributing, that people can choose. Really choose for themselves, and also to choose to be that gift, right? When we have a sense of like, oh, this is an area that I'm really lit up by, and this is a population that I really enjoy working with and playing with and creating change with. How cool to be able to take tools that weren't available before, and they're so simple. I mean, a question as a tool, right? Like it's just a question, and yet if it can create your life in a totally new way, well, maybe there's something to that.
And I also love it if anyone wants to message me about any topics that they would like me to do classes on online events. I love that. There have been specific requests from people around the world that is like, hey, I love this one. Could you do a webinar or Zoominar on this? And I'm like, yeah, let's go for it. Let's have fun with that. So what would be fun for you? What would you like to kind of play around with more and have more ease and joy and glory with? What would it be? What would create the life that you would truly like? I love hearing about that as well. And then also collaborating and connecting with other facilitators and people, because I get so much out of it, just as much, if not maybe more than the participants in my events. I tell you, it's just so great.
Yeah, cool. And especially in this area of communication where, we have everything that we are, right? Like we show up here, and then we have all this, and there is an energetic communication that exists between us, and yet we don't always acknowledge our capacity with that, or sometimes we're still kind of learning how that works, and that it's even a possibility. And so we use these words, right? And each word is this little packet of meaning that we share with another person. And, at our best, we can sort of point generally at this vague thing and hope that they get enough of where we're going with it, that they actually can receive some of that, right? Yeah. It's kind of like, we use a sentence and we speak one sentence to each other, and it's kind of like going through that whole chain of telephone, because you have all these different meanings and symbols and, past experiences that really create the lens that we see things and hear things through. So, when we can really communicate with one another and really receive one another and really perceive what we're each, being, what can we create in the world together and on a greater scale. So, doing this work with communication, interpersonal relationships. You know, I know you also you play a lot with the body and body image and the way that we communicate. Yes, the way we
communicate. Using our bodies to communicate ever, right?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. You know, the way that we're communicating with our own bodies, and then also how we're communicating with the world, with and through and as our bodies. And so I'm just really, really grateful that you're playing with this work and that you're available for people who are looking to learn more. And so is there anything else, Siris, that you would like to share with our audience today, or any other little takeaway that you would like to gift to them before we close the episode for today?
Just one thing is pinging right now, and it's this question that I mentioned in the chapter of my book that actually I'll only hint at it. I'll let you guys read it in the chapter, but we used this question to really shift our perspective on this really potentially, for everyone else's point of view, would have been a really tragic moment. And it's what's right about this that we're not getting yet.
Yeah.
And so in a lot of my work with communication and with, be it families, children, individuals, from professional to, you know, the person down the street, I'm looking at what's right about this person that they haven't acknowledged yet, that they're not getting yet. And what's possible here that I'm not getting yet. And that really shifts things a lot. If we actually asked what's right about me that I'm not getting yet, what life would we choose?
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful. I mean, when you talk about that, you know, the two words that actually come into my awareness are allowance and also acknowledgement. And it kind of brings us full circle with a lot of the things we've been talking about, really acknowledging, you know, what is, not just what we think things are.
Yes.
Yeah, and having allowance for things showing up sometimes in a different way. Sometimes the most amazing gifts come wrapped in the strangest of packages. And what if we could actually receive it all and be willing to, you know, see what else is possible with that. So thank you so much, Siris. It's been wonderful having you on the show. I really appreciate you. And like I said, I will have the link to her website as well as her book, so you can also purchase that. And then, of course, the other books that we discussed today. And as always, for anyone who's enjoyed this episode and any of the others, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You can also like us at The Art of Creation Show on Facebook. And if there's anything that you would like to see us explore in the future, please don't be a stranger. Let us know. And yeah, I wonder what else we can create on this planet together. And Siris, once again, thank you so much for joining. Everyone else, we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.